How realistic are the Iranians now, all of these years later, after the '79 revolution, when they obviously were seen as the most dangerous regime in the world? Next to ISIS, do they look conservative with a small c, like the old Soviet Union?
They look dangerous with a capital D. I mean, they're the real deal. They are a traditional military power.
As we welcome you back to America's Forum with Miranda Kahn, J.D. Hayworth, and we heard the Washington Post's David Ignatius there with my old congressional colleague Joe Scarborough on MSNBC, saying that Iran poses a serious danger with a capital D.
Yeah, this is the country, at least superficially, continues to negotiate a nuclear deal with the United States.
So as the critics continue to question where these talks are taking us, what about that assessment? Dangerous with a capital D? For more on the story, we are pleased to be joined by the noted attorney and Harvard Law professor Alan Dershowitz. Alan, thanks for joining us today via telephone.
Thank you so much for having me on. Of course, Iran is so much more dangerous than ISIS. ISIS is a passing blip. It will be destroyed within a very short period of time. It made so many mistakes, going after Jordan by killing that pilot, going after Egypt by executing Egyptian Christians, provoking France, provoking European countries. It will be destroyed. It's, terrorists in trucks. Whereas Iran is going to become a nuclear power because the United States is now, with the Europeans, allowing it to become a nuclear power. They are the greatest exporter of terrorism in the world. They wholly own Hezbollah. They support Hamas. They support many other terrorist groups. They export terrorism as far as Argentina, and there's no indication that they're softening their policies or positions. And if they become a nuclear weapons power, they will become the most dangerous country in the world today. And ISIS is nothing compared to them, and the idea that we need the help of Iran to destroy ISIS is ridiculous. ISIS poses a danger to Iran. It's on their border. It poses only a distant danger to us. They need our help much more than we need their help, and we shouldn't be compromising our position on their nuclear arms in order to get them to help us defeat ISIS.
So the bottom line is they can't be trusted. How is that affecting our relationship with Israel?
Well, it's affecting our relationship with all thinking people. The American administration is making a dreadful mistake by essentially changing the American policy. President Obama called me to the Oval Office once, a few years ago, looked me in the eye and said, Alan, I don't bluff. Iran will never be allowed to develop nuclear weapons. That was the policy then. He wasn't bluffing. He was telling me the truth. But the policy has now changed, and our position is, well, we're going to allow them to develop nuclear weapons in 10 years. Well, 10 years means 5 years or 6 years, and it will mean the end of any kind of non-proliferation. Saudi Arabia is going to want to get nuclear weapons. Egypt is going to want to get nuclear weapons. All the Sunni nations will want to have a counterweight to the Shia nuclear bomb, which really frightens them. And we saw what happened with North Korea. We saw what happened with Pakistan. And under the administration's position, it's inevitable that Iran will become the first terrorist nuclear nation in the world, and that will pose a great threat. They're armed with ICBMs, intercontinental ballistic missiles, that can reach the shores of the United States and all through Europe.
And mindful of that, Alan, let me ask you this. A minute remains. You said the president called you to the Oval Office, looked you in the eyes, and said, I don't bluff. In your opinion, 45 seconds, has the president been bluffing the American people to make a change of this magnitude? Do you feel betrayed?
I feel betrayed. I don't think the president lied to me. I think he told me what he believed at the time, but he's changed his policy. And the idea that he complains that Congress may want to check and balance his mistake violates every principle of our Constitution. When the president invites somebody to come to the White House, he doesn't ask the permission of the Speaker of the House. And the Speaker of the House does not have to ask permission of the president to invite a world leader to Congress. This nonsense about protocol just doesn't understand the constitutional separation of powers. Congress has as much power as the president. Our Constitution does not make this a presidential regime.
And we will continue the discussion, Alan. We're going to call you right back after the break. There is more with Alan Dershowitz ahead, so please stay with us. Welcome back to America's Forum. It appears now clothing retailer Abercrombie & Fitch will get its day in court, the Supreme Court of the United States. This all concerns the fact that the company refused to hire a Muslim woman who wore the traditional headscarf, citing strict guidelines for how employees must dress. Previous rulings have been in favor of the young woman with the hijab. But what will happen in front of the High Court? Rejoined here on the anchor desk by Miranda Kahn, let's continue the conversation with Harvard Law professor Alan Dershowitz. So, Alan, your legal opinion, is this Muslim woman protected under federal law?
Well, thank God she lives in the United States and is not under the control of ISIS. Have you seen the video? We don't know whether it's real, but it looks real, of a Muslim woman being shot and killed simply for not covering all of her face. Not wearing the hijab in the proper manner. Don't know if it's true or not, but we know they're doing that. In the United States, at least you get your day in court. The law is very, very unclear. It has to be job-related, and there's a statute that says you must make religious accommodation if you can do it consistent with the objects of your firm. And so it's going to be a balancing test, and in general, religion prevails in these cases. So in general, the right of the woman, if I had to make a prediction, would probably prevail unless the company can show that it is inconsistent with how she has to perform her job.
But explain to me, if you will, the policy, the store has a look policy. And actually, they say they don't like it when people wear black. So she's coming in with a black scarf at a clothing store. Don't they reserve the right to say, you have to maintain a certain look that represents our company? And
yeah, I mean, that's the argument on the other side, and the question really is, can they accommodate her? Can they give her a job that doesn't require her to present the look to customers? Is there any kind of accommodation they can make? If the answer is no, they have a neutral, non-prejudicial reason for having everybody wear white, or, for example, if a Muslim woman wanted to get a job with, what's the name of that company that sells wings? Hooters, right? Obviously, Hooters would have a right to say, you must wear these horrible-looking shorts, which is why I will never go into Hooters. But that's their business model, and they're entitled to project the business model. But whether or not Abercrombie will be able to make that argument is really unpredictable. The Hobby Lobby case showed us essentially the direction where the court seems to be going in interpreting the religious rights statute. But you make a good argument. If she's presenting herself as a salesperson, maybe the company will win on that theory.
Alan, as you mentioned an imaginary case involving Hooters, but at times it seems that some cases are brought not for individual accommodation, but to advance a notion of I don't want to say, well, I guess it would be reparations or some sort of rebalance of society. How many of these cases really deal with individual situations or to advance a general notion of fairness in our society?
You make a very important point.
Yes.
You make a very important point. A lot of these cases are brought by organizations that are committed to principled decisions. They're not as interested in the individual as they are in making their point. The Hobby Lobby case was clearly about birth control and reproductive rights, and this case is probably about more than this particular woman. And, that's the way litigation works in the United States. Individuals can't afford to bring lawsuits unless they represent a policy or a principle or a broader approach to it. So we're going to see a lot of those cases coming to the courts.
Alan Dershowitz, as always, sir, we didn't have to go to Harvard Law School to find out the finer points of the law. Alan, we always appreciate the time you provide for us here on America's Forum. We look forward to our next visit.
So do I. Thank you so much.
Yes, indeed. Harvard Law professor Alan Dershowitz. And it is interesting to see the development of these cases.
Yeah, because originally the lower court, was in favor of her, then they appealed, and the appellate court favored for the company. So we'll see what happens.
That's right. Stay tuned for that. When we come back, more from CPAC.